The prospect for peace on the Korean Peninsula is growing bleaker by the minute. North Korea's foreign minister now accusing President Trump of declaring war against his country after the president tweeted the rogue regime's days may be numbered. He wrote, quote, "Just heard Foreign Minister of North Korea speak at UN. If he echoes thoughts of Little Rocket Man, they won't be around much longer." The North Korean foreign minister didn't like that and said the rogue regime now has the right to shoot down U.S. bombers even when they aren't flying in North Korean airspace. This in turn caused the Pentagon spokesperson Robert Manning to respond by saying the Defense Department will give the president, quote, options to deal with North Korea, but it's starting to look less and less likely that those options are peaceful. So what comes next in North Korea, and will anyone survive it? Wow, what a bummer. Let me ask former CIA officer Buck Sexton. He's also the host of the radio show Buck Sexton with America Now. Buck, welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome, Buck. So we've been seeing a little bit of wargaming about how things might go down on the Korean Peninsula. It tends to start with North Korea lobbing a missile toward Guam, and then the focus of a U.S. carrier group in that little ocean there.
So we're already going there to the wargaming where we're actually at war, because I'm really hoping that it doesn't come to that. There's no way.
Me too.
There's no way.
Is there any way that it doesn't come to that?
There are a bunch of ways that I think it may not come to that. The rhetoric right now from both sides is the most heated that I can certainly remember in my lifetime. But let's keep in mind that this is a war that actually technically never ended, although it was also technically not a war in the Korean Peninsula.
But technically you've got two leaders telling a series of yo mama jokes.
There is some truth to that, although they're technically not yo mama jokes, but I'm going to stop using the T word for a second here. There is, I think, an argument to be made. Everyone knows that Seoul is within artillery distance of North Korea, and that most of their weaponry, a vast majority, in fact, of their weaponry is lined along the DMZ.
Yes, James Stavridis at Tufts University says 20,000 people would die every day of a conflict.
And there are some people who say that's even a low estimate. So there's no way that this is not absolutely catastrophic for both sides. But when you're dealing with a cult of personality like the Kim regime, I think there's a case to be made that propaganda has to be met with propaganda from the other side, meaning that he has been able to sustain himself through two things. One is the cult of personality around the Kim regime, and two, the promise of reunification of the Korean Peninsula through force and the massive force that undergirds all of this with the Korean state. So by mocking Kim Jong-un, even though it may not make its way into North Korea proper all that much because of the lack of internet connectivity, by actually standing up to the regime, I think there's the possibility that you may take a little bit of the Kim magic, if you will, away. I think that's possible. Now, I know that this is not proven and no one is really sure where this is going to go. The most important factor in all this—
The president's detractors like Hillary Clinton say it's incredibly dangerous to be that incendiary when you're talking about an unstable nuclear power. But the upside is maybe you do something that's so unorthodox, you take some of the wind out of their sails.
That's where I'm going with this, yes.
And then where do you go from there?
Well, when you have a regime like North Korea that's been saying they're going to turn Seoul, the capital of South Korea, into a sea of fire, that's one of their favorite terms, it's hard to think that you're going to make things worse with tough rhetoric. The China piece of all this is by far the most important from a policy, from a strategy point of view, that China is cutting off North Korea somewhat from banks. Now, that border is going to be relatively—
and oil.
Right, banks and limiting but not embargoing oil.
Yes.
Look, there's ways that North Korea, which has substantial coal reserves, could engage in liquefaction to create some ability to make up for the shortfall in oil. We're trying to constrict a regime economically that's been living in a subsistence economic environment for a very long time.
Okay, we have 15 seconds left. Are we all going to die?
No, we're not all going to die. I think China's going to put some pressure on North Korea, and I think things will quiet down over time.
Interesting.
That's what I think
Buck Sexton, I love your optimistic prediction. Thank you for being here.
And late summer suit for not summer, but that's how I roll.
Navy seersucker, it is exactly how you roll.
Thank you.